In this video we are going to take a closer look at the first Balance Dataslate of 10th edition, as well as the most recent version of the Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k, both of which were released early September. In the first part, we will go through all the relevant changes for the Deathwatch in 10th edition. In the second part, we will then look at what this potentially means and how we can best adjust our Deathwatch lists to accommodate these changes. Lastly, there will be my personal conclusions and a quick wrap-up of what has been covered.
Welcome to SwissHammer, your channel for modeling in Warhammer 40k. My name is Tammer, and I will be guiding you through this video.
Diving right into the Autumn Balance Dataslate, this one addresses the long-expected changes to towering models, the overperforming Eldari, as well as devastating wounds. None of these really came as much of a surprise, with devastating wounds in particular no longer generating mortal wounds, but ignoring saving throws of any kind instead, including invul saves. Personally, I think that this is now better balanced overall, with Custodies getting the short end of the stick, as devastating wounds now ironically works better against them than before. While it remains to be seen how the Golden Boys come out of this overall, I hope that GW will address any potential shortcomings through that specific faction, rather than doing yet another drastic rules reworks to devastating wounds themselves. They did mention that they are trying to address imbalances through points over rules changes in this edition, and while I am all for ironing out stuff that should not have been in the game in the first place, the first Balance Dataslate has turned out to be quite hefty to begin with, as we will continue to see in just a moment. Which brings us to changes to stratagems, specifically modifying a stratagem CP cost. What stands out here for Space Marines in particular is the Captain's Right of Battle ability, which now only works on stratagems labeled as battle tactics. The same applies to Vect abilities, by the way. While this is already a significant nerf by itself, it is even worse for the Deathwatch, as out of our 6 stratagems, only a single one, Armor of Contempt, is labeled as such, meaning that there will be no more free teleportarium or even special issue ammunition shenanigans. The whole SAA deal aside, I think this significantly cuts back on Deathwatch mobility and adds back a lot of CP pressure. For Deathwatch specifically, all 3 special issue ammunition stratagems now only work with bolt weapons, which GW specifies in a neat table. One word of advice here: there are some entries missing on the current version of the PDF available on Warhammer Community, which are instead available through the Warhammer 40k app. Either way, this is a significant nerf by itself, and what makes it even worse is that they did not even bother reworking the devastating wounds exclusion on Hellfire rounds, even though both the change to bolt weapons only, as well as the change to devastating wounds themselves, are already cutting back its potential. Then moving on to the Munitorum Field Manual version 1.3, for the Deathwatch unit specifically, Deathwatch veterans went up by 2 points per model, bringing them up to 110 for 5. Perhaps I have been praising them a bit too highly. Either way, while they are still competitive at the new points values, GW has completely dropped the ball on the Proteus kill team, putting 5 models aka 5 vets at 180 points, keeping them at the same insane 65% increase for nothing, and the 10 model size has increased to 360 points, bringing them up to an 18% additional cost when compared to the price of the individual models at their best composition, aka for Terminators and a single biker, which is even more insane than the 11% increase that we paid before. Don't get me wrong, the rules themselves are fine, but an 18% points tax now brings the Proteus kill team to a level where we might just pay too much for what they can bring to the table, and that's sad. Furthermore, while GW dropped points on various models that we can use in our primary skill teams, the values for the Fortis and Indomitor did not get adjusted, meaning that our former 7% discount in an optimal Fortis skill team composition has now disappeared, not that anyone took them anyway, and even the former 7% discount on an Indomitor kill team now shrank to a meager 4%. This is due to heavy intercessors and aggressors getting a points reduction. This was exactly my worry that I mentioned during my Deathwatch index review. Now that they have fixed points on kill teams, GW overlooks our kill team points when making adjustments to the individual models. On the bright side of things, they also did some good for us, as Spectre's kill team now costs 105 points for 5 models, and given that Infiltrators went up to 100 points, we are now only paying 5 extra points, essentially trading the Omni Scramblers for the Spectre's Doctrine. While I am personally still not happy over the loss of the Scramblers, I now consider the 5-man Spectres an option. Likewise, the 10-man Spectre's kill team in an optimal composition will bring home a 9% discount, before it was 6%, which will leave the 10-man Spectre's kill team a niche pick due to the odd combination of models, but at least the price tag is very good now. Veteran Bikers also dropped to 80 points for 3, which is a solid investment for a fast objective snagging unit. Then last and certainly least, even though Vect abilities have been nerfed, our Watchmaster still sits at a hefty 115 points. Unlike the Kalidas Assassin, they did not reduce his points cost, most likely overlooked just like the kill teams. Outside of our Deathwatch exclusive datasheets, as previously mentioned, aggressors and eliminators are excellently priced now, and both Centurion variants, as well as several dreadnoughts, also dropped nicely in points, as did the Vindicator. The Kalidas Assassin remains an interesting pick at her now reduced price, nerfed Vect or not, and the Grammys Captain at 80 points is an absolute auto-include at this point, given that he was already excellent in combination with Thief of Secrets and an Indomitor kill team before. On the flip side of things, Infiltrators, Sternguard and Gladiators went up instead. All of these remain viable, but we are paying extra for the time being. With the basic rules and points changes out of the way, what does this mean for the Deathwatch? Well, nothing good, that's for sure. While Deathwatch was making some strong appearances at tournaments prior to these adjustments, and I think MetaWatch had them hover somewhere around 52% win rate, no small thanks to some meta chasers hopping on board, the combined weight of changes done through the Balance Dataslate has a devastating effect on the Deathwatch. The Rites of Battle ability severely cuts back our ability to use our amazing Black Spear Task Force stratagems, and given that we have so few viable kill team options for the time being, this hurts them even more. While an Indomitor kill team continues to perform well, they really benefit from not having to spend CP on a Teleportarium, or pretty much getting permanent access to special issue ammunition. Speaking of which, the Indomitor kill team is also the biggest winner out of the SAA changes, with the heavy intercessors, 2 Boltstorm aggressors and 2 Boltstorm inceptors still making good use of special issue ammunition. What I find unfortunate is that this pretty much kills the other loadouts. I kind of like the idea that we could at least run various options. Along those same lines, while the Infernus Heavy Bolter remains access to special issue ammunition on the Bolter, frag cannons do not, hence the favor between these two would in theory shift towards the Infernus, but given the poor state of the Proteus kill team pricing, as well as the extra strain on CP, I would not rule out sticking to frag cannons on wets anyway. Overall, the Black Spear Task Force looks way less attractive than before, and one might start looking into the Gladius Spearhead instead, which I consider a bad sign already this early into the edition. As far as HQs are concerned, I think the Watchmaster is out for the time being. With the nerfs to both his Vect as well as the Proteus kill team, I don't think the overall cost is still warranted. On the other hand, at least one Indomitor with the Gravis Captain rocking the Thief of Secrets remains an auto-include, and I would also stick to Deathwatch veterans, though perhaps in more limited numbers than what used to be possible before. On the Spectre's kill team, I do like the idea of having 5 infiltrators with the Spectre's doctrines now that they are almost on par with 5 regular infiltrators, but I think what might currently hold them back is simply that the Kalidas Assassin remains an excellent choice for similar functionality. If we wanted to replicate the free redeploy plus unshootable bubble, we would need both a 5-man Spectrus plus a Phobos Librarian for a grand total of 180 points, which is the double of a Kalidas. Granted, there are additional benefits for that sort of investment, but then these are 90 points missing elsewhere instead. In short, I think that the Spectre's kill team is almost there, and after a Kalidas nerf it would certainly be. My greatest wish here for GW would be to simply remain consistent with the point values when it comes to the original datasheets and these models being included into our kill teams. And just fix the 5-man values already, this is getting outrageous. Having said that, with the Deathwatch and its unique detachment having taken a severe dent by these latest changes, I think it is well worth looking outside of our unique datasheets. Winners here are 3-man Eliminator Squad, an excellent utility pick. Then Centurion Devastators could be interesting in combination with special issue ammunition, and I am personally running double Vindicators for the time being. More on this in a later episode. All in all, I think this recent update has left a severe dent in our Deathwatch pauldron, and I think it is due to a combination of rules changes affecting our unique detachment really badly, as well as GW just not being consistent on updating us in line with changes to the regular Space Marine Index and its data sheets. As I mentioned during my initial Deathwatch Index review, our unique stratagems are very powerful, and both the Rites of Battle ability change, as well as the directly targeted nerf to special issue ammunition, has severely limited our options for using them, be it due to CP or due to who can actually use them now. Kill teams have not been in a very good position when compared to 9th edition to begin with, and this has further widened the gap. GW should give us incentives for using them, but what currently happens is the complete opposite. What is needed here are consistent updates in line with what happens to Space Marines overall, consistent kill team points, as well as giving us incentives for running more than just a single valid combo. At this point, I really wish we would just go back to having the points based on whatever the models cost on their original datasheet. I think we are perfectly capable of doing the math, but that of course would most likely cause too much of an extra effort on their documents, and especially the official app. Such a shame to fall victim to such technicalities. At this point, I think our best bet is the upcoming Space Marine Codex and some unit changes or new detachments that might just go well with our unique stuff, but given the complete disconnect that GW is already showing a few months into this edition, it would be luck rather than any conscious thought on their side. To wrap things up, over the course of the video, we have looked at the release of the first Balance Dataslate and another update to the Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k 10th edition and what it means for the Deathwatch. As far as the rules changes go, devastating wounds no longer generate mortal wounds, but ignore saving throws of any kind, including invul saves. Furthermore, CP reduction abilities got a major nerf, with both the Captain's Rite of Battle ability as well as Vect abilities in general now only working on battle tactic stratagems. For the Deathwatch, this would be a major blow already, but to add insult to injury, all our special issue ammunition stratagems now only work with bolt weapons. This severely cuts back the power of our unique detachment, the Black Spear Task Force. As far as points changes are concerned, Deathwatch veterans go up in points, but remain competitive, but the unfortunate part here is that GW keeps taxing us extra for the Proteus kill team, which now demands an 18% points tax at an optimal 10-man loadout, which might just be too much to keep it competitive, even with its good rules. On the other hand, the 5-man Spectre's kill team becomes more attractive due to the Infiltrator's points hike, but overall, I think the biggest winner here is the Indomitor kill team, mostly because it remains competitively priced, can still make good use of special issue ammunition stratagems, and the discounted Gravis Captain with Thief of Secrets accompanying it now is literally a steal. Don't leave home without one. All in all, I personally think that the combined sum of these adjustments hits the Deathwatch harder than it should have, and I am expecting to see the meta chasers abandoning the faction as quickly as they came, and our win rate should drop well below 50%, at which point we can only pray to the God Emperor that GW might give us a proper look after all. So that's it for the release of the first Balance Dataslate, and another update to the Munitorum Field Manual for Warhammer 40k 10th edition, and what it means for the Deathwatch. What do you guys think about these recent changes, and how do you rate the Deathwatch now? Any major changes you are going to do to your lists? Let me know in the comments. Then finally, if you made it this far and I still have your attention, if you like my content, any additional support is greatly appreciated, as it helps me invest into future videos. For that, I have both a Ko-fi as well as a Patreon page, links are in the description. Furthermore, I would also like to mention that there is a SwissHammer Facebook page where I will be posting links to my videos as well as articles I find of interest. I do read a lot about the hobby, but not all of it will always end up as its own video. I look forward to seeing you there as well. As always, thank you very much for watching, guys. Your continued support is greatly appreciated. I hope you have been enjoying this video, give me a thumbs up if you did, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks again and see you next time.